What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. Today we have a new deck list for you guys, and this is actually the first deck list from a request from our community board. So this is what I'm going to be doing at least once a week. I'm going to be having a community board request to what deck list I should make. Yeah, in this video we are going to be doing the deck list that you guys obviously requested, but we don't have a matchup at the end of the video for this one. The matchup will be put in the video tomorrow. That's not going to be the same going forward. It's just I have to do it this way this one time, and I do apologize for those of you who want to see the matchup in this video, but we do have a Boba Fett green matchup against this deck, which is I'm just going to have to edit and put out tomorrow. So again, I apologize for that, but that won't be the way that it is going further. But there is going to be a little bit of changes in this video just because someone requested something. If you guys prefer me not do it this way, definitely let me know in the comments. I just want to go ahead and try this out because someone gave me a suggestion and a recommendation, and I want to accommodate that in this video, and let's see how it goes, right? So with that being said, I want to thank everyone for participating in the community tab and letting me know what you guys think or what you guys want me to make. And shout outs to Izzy Dave for his comment. I've seen Hera command decks, but I was wondering if Hera Vigilance would be better. Now, in my opinion, I do actually prefer to play Hera command, but my spin on Hera Vigilance is kind of fun, and you know, I hope you guys kind of enjoy it, and it is actually a lot of fun to play. It's just, again, I do kind of like the command deck a little bit better, in my opinion. And then also, I'm going to show off Fraser Affleck 6232. I dare you to do Hera Vigilance mill deck. Now, with that being said, this is not going to be a mill deck, but he also wanted Hera Vigilance. I wanted to show off his comment as well. And actually, next week, I will be showing off a mill deck that I went up against with this deck, and I got milled. And so if you want to see this, Fraser, I will make sure that you see this mill deck. It will be going up next week. It's actually an Iden double blue. So we do have an Iden double blue mill deck for you guys to see next week. For those of you who don't like mill, it's just going to be a matchup video using the deck. It's not going to be the full deck list, but either way, it's still something to accommodate Fraser Affleck. And some people do like to play mill. I personally do not like to play against it, but it is what it is. And it's just a little fun video I'll be showing you guys next week. Again, showing you that mill is possible in this game, though I probably don't want to do it. But again, that's neither here nor there. Someone requested mill. We're going to give it to him next week. So without further ado, as you guys know now that we're going to be playing Hera Blue. So let's go ahead and let's talk about Hera as a leader. If you guys are new to the channel and you're enjoying what you guys are seeing, make sure you hit that sub button. Support is always appreciated. And without further ado, let's talk about Hera and what makes her kind of unique. So her leader skill is that she ignores aspect penalties on Spectre cards you play. And that's very unique because it allows her to play cards outside of her colors in a way that, and you're not going to have to spend that aspect penalty. So you can play cards like Spark of Rebellion, Ezra Bridger, Sabine Wren, Zeb in this deck and not have to pay those extra 2, and Chopper as well. So it's kind of cool. That being said, she doesn't have an ability outside of that, so that's kind of rough. And you know, if you have 6 resources, you can go ahead and bring her out, and on attack she gives a unique unit and experience token, which is cool because she's going to power up her specters and other unique units that you have. With that being said, though, when she's knocked out or someone gets rid of her out of the game, she goes back to the leader zone and then just doesn't have an ability. So it's just kind of like meh, her leader ability, and her like, yes, the Spectre thing is cool, but there's nothing really on top of that. That being said, I still really like what we made here because we kind of went with a Spectre Force build, and I'll kind of explain that when we get to the deck list. I do like Hera and I love Rebels, so I do really enjoy this deck because of the characters in the deck. So it just struggles against control. Also aggro, right? Obviously, it's not like crazy good against aggro, but really the main issue with this deck is that if you go into a long game scenario with a control deck that has a ton of removal cards, it slows you down to the point where you have to rely on this one specific card I'll kind of go over to kind of get you back into the game. Yes, you can go ahead and attack the base early on your opponent, but once they start playing the blue cards like Power of the Dark Side, Vanquish, Takedown, even Strike True and stuff like that, just getting rid of your specters one by one, it becomes an issue because this deck wants to have multiple specters on the board at one time. And if you can't even keep one on to attack, it just becomes a problem. So that's what I kind of saw with this deck. Control against it can be kind of rough. But with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the base that I chose to play. Now, I chose Security Complex. I was kind of going back and forth on this. I was trying to debate whether or not the 30 HP base or the Security Complex was going to be good enough. I actually value getting a shield at some instances, so I figured that a Security Complex would be pretty good. In a way to kind of keep your specters on board more often is kind of like a protection, and then also other cards within the deck and the events and the upgrades can also help you keep these cards on the board. But occasionally just being able to throw something a shield at any point is actually pretty solid for this and trying to keep your specters on board. So that's why I kind of went that route. You can definitely go with the 30 HP base and still feel okay. That's definitely up to you. But for me, I thought the 25 HP base was pretty good. And again, that ability to give out a shield at any given moment in the match is pretty nice. So with that being said, we talked about Hera, the base. Let's go ahead and show off the ground units now. We played 22 ground units. This is going to be a heavily ground unit deck now. My sideboard is going to have space units to kind of fix that a little bit if you need to. But for right now, let's go ahead and talk about the ground units. So starting off, we have Chopper. Love Chopper. Great robot. We play 2 of Chopper. When there's a Spectre unit in play, when you control another Spectre unit, I should say, you get raid 1 with him, so that's pretty good. You can go ahead and attack for 2. And on attack, you may discard a card from the defending person. So from their deck, I mean, so you're basically milling 1. If it's an event, you get to exhaust the resource. That's actually pretty good. And there you go, Frazier. There's some of your mill. But, you know, it is what it is with this. Chopper's pretty cool. And if you can actually exhaust units, resources early in the game, it can actually make a difference. So good old Chopper. I play him as 2 of, though, because if you get him kind of late game, he just becomes resource material because you have bigger units you can play and better units. So let's go ahead and hop into our next unit here. We have Sabine Wren. While you control at least three aspects among other friendly units, this unit cannot be attacked. So that's actually really good. You get to keep her on the board more often. And then her ability to be able to attack a defending person and deal damage to a base, or attack a base and deal an extra damage to the base. You can really use that to your advantage. Extra damage to the base is always good. So, or you can actually, if you're swinging into something that, you know, has 3 HP, you can also do a damage to the defender, but you cannot attack into a defender. I mean, you cannot attack into a base and deal 1 damage to a random unit. It has to be the unit that you're attacking, or you can attack the base and do extra damage to the base. That's kind of something that people are kind of getting confused about, but again, Sabine Wren, pretty good. And again, with Chopper, Sabine, you're gonna see there's no aspect penalty in this deck, so that's, again, really, really cool. We're playing Guardians of the Wills. The first upgrade you play on this unit each round costs 1 less, and that's kind of a theme for this deck. Obviously, I'm not playing a ton of upgrades, but we have Guardians of the Wills here because it is a Force unit, and again, this is a Force Rebel build, like a Force Spectre build, and I'll kind of go through it, but, you know, it's just another Force unit for some of my events. We have Fleet Lieutenant. Fleet Lieutenant works really well in this deck because you can go ahead and play it and you can attack with a unit. So it doesn't have to be a rebel. You can just attack with a unit. But if you are attacking with a rebel unit, you get to give it +2/+0 for the attack. And majority of my units are rebels, which is very, very nice. As for Bridger, he is a rebel. He's just a good 3-drop. When this unit completes an attack, look at the top card of your deck. You may play it, discard it, or leave it there so you can kind of go through your deck. You can kind of leave the card there. It allows you to kind of get the set up a play that you kind of want to do. Also, if you attack with him to start off a turn and you get Fleet Lieutenant and you have another unit, and using that to attack with another unit, as you guys saw in a previous video that I've done, it's actually a really, really good combo to get up a lot of speed and damage on your opponent. So as it's pretty solid, allows you to kind of look through the deck. Also, he's a Force unit and he's a rebel. So that's, you know, the main vibe of the deck, you know? Next, we have Kanan Jarrus. On attack, this is for you, Frazier. Again, more milling. On attack, you may discard a card from your defending player's deck, for each friendly Spectre you have. And so there are instances where I have like 4 Spectres on the board, and I can go ahead and I can swing and mill 4 cards. That's pretty good. But you're not gonna use this deck to mill through someone's deck completely. You can try to use it to get rid of some answers off the top of your opponent's deck, which is pretty nice. But again, Kanan Jarrus, and he also heals 1 from each aspect among those discarded cards. So that's also really nice. It allows you to heal your base while he attacks. So Kanan Jarrus, pretty cool. And again, he's a Force unit and a Rebel unit. Very good for this deck. We have 2 Obi-Wans, Sentinels, and then also when he is defeated, you get to give out 2 experience tokens, which is nice. And also if you give it to a Force unit, you can draw a card. So it gives you draw power and you can power up something. We have a good amount of Force units. We have Ezra, Kanan, Guardians of the Will, and we have Luke Skywalker. So that we have some targets. Speaking of Luke Skywalker, he is our final ground unit. He has Restore 3, which is really good. If you can get to him and start swinging and healing up your base, you can really stabilize if you're in a little bit of danger. And then also when played, give an enemy -3/-3 for the phase. If a friendly unit was defeated this phase, give that enemy -6/-6 for the phase instead. So that is really, really strong. If this -6/-6 isn't enough to take out your opponent, you heavily weaken it and then you use you use something else to clear up that, right? It's just a good way to get rid of a big threat if you need to. And so Luke, very good. And this gets me into my next thing. I understand that getting legendaries are pretty hard at the moment and stuff like that, and they're kind of expensive. So again, we had a recommendation. I'll go over it after the deck list, but understand I am listening to you guys, and I understand that getting some of these rares and legendaries are a little bit hard, and we're going to address it later in the video. Don't worry. That being said, those are all of our ground units. We're going to go ahead and hop over into space. So we only have 2 different space units, which is kind of rough. And again, my sideboard does kind of fix that. But we have the Restored Arc 170. It has Restore. It's a good 2-drop, honestly. So that's a good way to heal your base and also try to get some damage on your opponent. And then we have the Ghost. It comes in shielded. When played or on attack, you may give a shield token to another Spectre unit. This is a good way to kind of keep your Spectres protected. And, it's pretty solid. Getting into our events now, we have it binds all things. You get to heal up 3 damage from a unit, which is really good. Also, if you control a Force unit, not if that healed unit was a Force unit, if you control a Force unit at all, you get to deal that damage to another unit. So this is a good way to kind of heal your units and then also deal damage to another unit on the other side, which is good because, like, listen, if they have a bunch of space units, I can go ahead and still damage them with this event, and there are a bunch of other events we can do the same with. So it's a way to kind of control and hit space, even though we don't have many space units. It's just a way to kind of get around that, right? We have Make an Opening, gives it a unit -2/-2 for the phase, and also heals your base for 2. I use 2 of, which is pretty good. It's a good way to heal and weaken up your opponents. We have Strike True. I have 2 of them. You could argue I could put 3 of them in the deck. This works very well with some of the other cards. As your cards are getting powered up with, let's say, Hera or the other events and stuff like that in the deck, your Strike Trues are actually going to become more powerful and can clear out, again, space units or just big ground units. It's just a good way to clear up other units in the game as you're powering up your units. So Strike True, I felt fit pretty well in the deck. 3 of You're My Only Hope. Great card. You can, when you have 5 resources, you can get out Luke. If you top deck Luke with this card and you have 5 resources, you get him out that turn. So you get him out 2 turns earlier, and it's just really, really strong. I had someone, he was playing Thrawn against me, and he revealed Luke to me while I had this in my hand, and I had 5 resources. And I went ahead and I used this, and I just brought Luke onto the field. Cost me 5 total resources. Very, very strong. It's a good way to cheat out your higher cost units like, Kanan Jarrus and, Obi-Wan, the Ghost, Luke. There's good ways to get those out. Also, if you're down to your final amount of HP, you can play anything for free, so that's really good. The Forces with me, this is like a main staple of the deck because you get to choose a friendly unit, give them 2 experience. If you control a Force unit, so you just have to control a Force unit. Again, it doesn't have to be a Force unit. If you control a Force unit, also give a shield token to that chosen unit. That is crazy. You can go ahead and you can power up like anything. You can power up Sabine. You can power up, well, I mean, everything else is just kind of you know, force units really. But still, you can power up Sabine, Chopper, and all that stuff, and they still get a shield as long as you're controlling a force unit. And with that being said, you may also attack with that chosen unit. So it provides experience tokens, shields, and attacking ability, which is just really good value and can really speed up your attack on the opponent's base. So I really like this card. It fits very well in this deck, and, you know, again, it's probably a main staple in this deck. Another main staple in this deck, this might be one of the most important cards, especially when going up against control. U-Wing Reinforcement. Search your top 10 cards of your deck for up to 3 units, combined cost 7 or less. Play each of them for free. Put the other cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. Blah. This allows you to potentially get out Kanan, Sabine, and Chopper in one go. You can go ahead and get Kanan and Ezra. You can get Obi-Wan and Chopper. You could just get Luke out, which is pretty good. You can get Fleet Lieutenant if you want to go ahead and attack with a unit you already have on the board and stuff like that. So like, it's really good. And then also it works really well with getting your Spectres back on the board. If you're playing against control and they keep on getting rid of your Spectres as you're going through the game and you're not really able to kind of gain momentum, when you get to 7 resources, you drop this and you can drop up to 3 Spectres on the board at one time. That is crazy value and really good. And it can kind of try to get you back into the game. So again, U-Wing Reinforcement, really, really good in this deck. Now we're going to get into our upgrades. So with the Guardian of the Wills, you're able to play these things once, you know, the first one you play on that unit for 1 free, 1 less, I mean. So it actually allows you to play Jedi Lightsaber on that unit, you know, kind of early. Or like in the same turn, you know, it's just pretty solid. But let's go over Electro Staff here. We have Electro Staff attached to a non-vehicle unit, right? But while attached unit is defending, attacker gets -1, -0. It's actually a really good way to, you know, you can put it on Obi-Wan and he can kind of live longer, which is really good. But also it gives +2/+2, so it makes you kind of stronger. And then if your opponent is forced to attack it, like if they have to get rid of your unit, you go ahead and you -1 from their attack. So it's pretty solid. And then the final card for upgrades and the deck altogether is Jedi Lightsaber. If it's attached to a force unit, which again, we're playing a ton of force units, it gives the defender -2/2 for the phase. It's actually really strong because you can go ahead and attack into something, make it weaker, and even if you don't take it out with that unit, you can finish it off with something else because it's -2/2 for the phase. So that's really, really good. And again, I understand it's a rare, Electro Staff is a rare, U-Wing Reinforcement's a rare, and these are not like the cheapest cards. I know U-Wing Reinforcement's like $4, but to get around that, I'll get into that shortly. But this is kind of what we're rocking with the Hera Vigilance build. I liked the Force aspect of it because, you know, Luke Skywalker being a rebel and, you know, also Ezra Bridger and Kanan also being a rebel with Fleet Lieutenant and stuff like that. I just felt like it was a good vibe, and there are a ton of really good Force units and Force cards, like the Force is with me and stuff like that. I just felt like it was a very good try. Like this is a deck that's a lot of fun to play, mainly because of the characters, but also like it does have its weak points. And again, it's like control is its biggest problem at the moment, I feel like. But again, let's hop over into our sideboard and we can kind of talk about why I have the sideboard the way that I do. We have 2 Zeb. Adding in Zeb kind of helps with the aggro game. Having Zeb, when he attacks into something and defeats it, he gets to do 4 damage to another ground unit. So you get to kind of control the ground if you really need to, if there's a bunch of small units coming at you. I just felt like Zeb was really good. But I understand he's probably really good in the actual deck. But I put him in the sideboard just because like he's a 5 cost and like at certain points I want to play multiple cards in a turn. And I felt like Zeb is pretty good in this sideboard here. We have Bright Hope. Bright Hope gives you that Sentinel in space if you really are getting bombarded in space and you kind of have to switch it up. Also, you may return a friendly non-leader ground unit to the owner's hand. If you do, you get to draw a card, so it's draw power, as well as being able to pop something back to your hand and, you know, maybe being able to keep it alive and be able to play it again next turn. It's just a good way to kind of do that. And plus, again, draw power, never bad. Home 1. I understand it's a legendary, but it is also really good. It has Restore 2. Each other friendly unit you control, it gains Restore 1 for each other friendly unit. So there's obviously, but still, everything gets Restore 1, which is really strong. And when played, you get to play a heroic unit from your discard pile. It costs 3 less. So you get to essentially play a card for free if you choose like Sabine, Ezra, and stuff like that. right? But if you're like really late in the game and you have a lot more resources than 8, you can potentially maybe play Luke if you're at that point. I don't know if you're ever going to really get to that point, but still, it's a possibility, right? And, you know, it's pretty solid. Next, we have Spark of Rebellion. This is a card that I feel like is needed. It could potentially go to a 3 of in the sideboard because of control decks. You want to play this when your opponent's playing a lot of like Power of the Dark Side, Vanquish, Takedown, Overwhelm Barrage. Those are the cards I try to look for to get rid of because I want to try to keep my units on the board as long as possible. Or you can obviously get rid of like big units like the Avenger and Darth Vader, Boba Fett, even though it's not big, but like it could be a problem. So Spark of Rebellion I felt was really good in the sideboard, and I might actually put it up to a 3 of in the sideboard, maybe kind of figure out something here, but it's just really good for the weakness of this deck, which is like control and stuff like that, or like late game stuff, right? And then we have Traitorous here. Traitorous is really good against decks that like to heavily increase their units with experience tokens, so kind of like Tarkin and stuff like that, but also it's really good against Boba Fett because you get to take over Boba Fett with this card. And there are other cards as well that you can take over with this, but still, it's really good in like certain matchups, and that's why it's in the sideboard, because in certain matchups this is really strong and you just throw that in. So that's kind of what we're rocking with the sideboard. And again, like aggros could be a little bit rough, that's why we have Zeb and stuff like that. And then obviously control, which is why we have Spark of Rebellion, and you know, home 1 to hopefully get to that point where we can heal up using home 1 to kind of hopefully get around control, and then Traitorous or, you know, that Boba Fett matchup really, but like there are other matchups that it comes in handy for. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this deck list. Shoutouts to Fraser Affleck and Izzy Dave for the recommendation for the deck list. But with that being said, we're going to also give a shout out to Swag Dean. Now you see here Swag Dean, he's asked me to play to run Cassian, or he's asking if I've played Cassian or IG yet. I love IG, but he's just not great. But that's not what we're going to focus on here. He said if you could suggest legendary replacements, that would be a great addition, because it is hard to get all these legendaries that I am using. So with that being said, I'm actually going to put a budget list in this deck video. And if you guys prefer, I don't put a budget list and just do a replacement. Like, hey, instead of Luke, use this card. Instead of home 1 in the sideboard, use this card. I can do it that way as well. But also there are some rares that are kind of expensive too, like U-Wing and stuff like that. So I felt like showing off a budget list. We're not going to go over all the cards, but really this deck list kind of focuses around just the rebel aspect, right? So the deck completely changes, but it still has that that blue base, right? So it's still Vigilance. I'm running Capital City instead of Security Complex, and you're seeing a ton of rebels in this deck, and that's kind of what you're rocking with. You have Academy Training instead of Electro Staff, because that is a rare. The Force is with me again because you get to still attack with a unit. It kind of keeps you up with the speed, but also you have Rebel Assault to keep up with the speed as well. Metal Ceremony, because you have a ton of rebels, you can go ahead and power them up. And yeah, so that's kind of what we're rocking with here. This is more of a rebel build, and a build that can kind of maybe be a little bit faster than the other build. And then also you can, you know, use the event cards to attack with cards while making them stronger. And I thought that was really good synergy with the rebel engine that we had. Hera only has a few targets in this deck list though. It's just Kanan Jarrus, Dodonna, Bridger, Ezra Bridger, and Sabine, and that's really it in this deck list, but that's really okay. I feel like, again, you're going to be focusing more on the rebel build on this and the speed of the rebels. So again, let me know how you guys feel about adding a complete budget list, or if you guys just want the replacement of the legendaries, which I can do that as well. I like hearing back from you guys. Again, shout outs to everyone in the community board, helping me out here, giving me nice feedback. You know, I really you know, respond to everything. I try to respond to everything and read everything. And again, I just want to thank you guys all for being awesome. And, you know, if you guys are new here, hit that sub button. I like to try to get you guys involved, and I'll be giving a shout out in every one of my deck list videos. I'm going to be using that community tab that I posted a couple days ago for next week as well. I'll probably do it every other week or every 3 weeks. I'll do a new post to get new requests, but I will be using other requests in that post for an upcoming video. So if I didn't pick your deck list, don't be upset, because I will probably go ahead and do it anyway. So again, if you're new here, hit that sub button. Support is always appreciated. And again, I do apologize that we don't have a matchup video. That will be tomorrow. The Boba Fett Hera matchup will be live tomorrow, and you'll see how the deck kind of runs against Boba Fett. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and hop on out of here. I want to thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.